Hi, this is Chico Resch. You are listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast on the Primetime Radio Network.
Hello and happy Devils Friday to each and every one of you watching. Welcome to Game Day Live, presented by the Let's Go Devils Podcast Network and the Primetime Radio Studios, along with And Crew Brew. My name is Vinnie Parise here with Shorts Guy as we get you set for New Jersey Devils hockey as they take on the St. Louis Blues. Welcome to all people watching on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch. The Devils, they're looking for another road win over the St. Louis Blues. Shorts Guy, how we doing?
I'm doing good, Vinny. It's just another great Devils Friday, and another great time to be here with you to talk the game that's going to be, just like Sam and Scotty of SiriusXM talk about the game that was. So, plus it's against the Blues. This, oddly enough, this is the one team that I have a T-shirt of that's not the New Jersey Devils, it's the St. Louis Blues, but I have a reason for that. That's because when one of my favorite all-time Devils, Cam Janssen, was traded back home to St. Louis, I just had to buy a St. Louis player tee with Cam Janssen's 55 on the back. So I had to.
I know I'm not the only one that thought you were going down the path to say that one of your all-time favorite Devils, Martin Brodeur, played for the St. Louis Blues. I know I'm not the only one that thought that. I was like, oh,
No.
You bought a T-shirt for the 7-game stint that Marty had with the Blues. Hell yeah. Marty was traded to the Blues, or he signed a deal with the Blues the day I left for a family cruise. The only family vacation I've ever taken in my entire life with my family. It was a cruise back in 2014. He signed with them the day we left, and by the time we got back, he was pretty much gone. And I was like, I kind of missed the whole Marty Blues. It's like it almost never even happened in my world. But I can't be the only one that thought you were going Marty there. I just can't be.
No, because I don't I don't accept the fact that he played for St. Louis. I know he did. I'm not an idiot.
Fair.
I'm not delusional. However, I just don't accept that. Although my Ranger fan friends, just like I got to give my Ranger fan friends some credit because they'll say, St. Louis Blues legend Marty Brodeur, and I come right back with Washington Capitals legend Henrik Lundqvist because we can get that right back to them.
He never got in a game with. I like to make their all-time greatest player besides Henrik, I would say, is probably Messier. And if you ask Messier who his team is, he probably would say the Oilers. Maybe I don't even know. I'm curious. I would say the Oilers if I were Messier because I wouldn't want to be associated with the stinky New York Rangers in any way, shape, or form. I almost felt weird when the Texas Rangers won the World Series. I was like, we're talking about a Rangers World Championship. Like, no, none of that. That sounds terrible. Hate the sound of that.
Yeah. It's like in Scottish League soccer. My favorite team is Celtic, and their biggest rival is the other Glasgow team, and they're called Glasgow Rangers. So
perfect.
And they're red and blue. So the Rangers in Glasgow are a team that I also hate as well as the regular Rangers in New York.
Absolutely. Yeah, screw any team named Rangers. Don't like them. Shorts guy,
Exactly.
before we get into what happened last night or what we're going to preview tonight against the St. Louis Blues, I have to come on here and brag a little bit. For the first time, I've been hosting the show. This is my third season since the great Sam Wu asked me if I wanted to be the host of Game Day Live. And I got a score prediction right for the first time.
I know.
I am pumped about it. It wasn't the exact same way that I said it was going to go down. I said the Devils would have the 1 goal, the 4-3 lead, and then they would shove one into the empty net. They probably would have put one in the empty net, but they drew a penalty, and they scored a goal on the power play. It was a 5-on-3 actually, and boy, do they move that puck well on the power play. But would you like to say congratulations to me for predicting the score right?
I would like to say congratulations to you, Vinny, for for getting that prediction correct, which I know that you and I both joked that we're the worst at making these predictions. So every now and then a blind squirrel finds a nut, and you were a blind squirrel last night that found that nut and celebrated tremendously. So well done to you. Until we're blind squirrels finding nuts again.
I do wonder if there's a little bit of merit to me knowing quite a bit about the Minnesota Wild. and that's the team that the Devils were playing against. I'm like, I kind
Mhm.
of was, but we don't know anything about hockey at the end of the day. But one thing I do want to talk about, we talk about him every single episode, and guess what? We're not going to stop anytime soon because people who cheer for other teams are talking about this guy on their favorite podcasts. Of course, I'm talking about Jack Hughes, leads the NHL with
Mhm.
20 points. He has 20 points in 9 games. Shorts guy. It usually takes Devils
Cool.
players like pre Jack Hughes. It
Mhm.
probably took like 35 games. We're talking about like December 5th, December 6th before we're talking about a guy on the Devils reaching 20 points. What even is this guy?
Whatever you said, my James Dolan internet just froze out, and I have no idea what it is you asked me. I know you're talking
So
about Jack Hughes heating up, and there was a question there, so I just need to get it again because James Dolan screwed us over.
no problem. James Dolan doesn't want to think about Jack Hughes
Nope.
being as good as he's been because his fan base cheered when the Devils selected him in the 2019 NHL draft at their watch party at Madison Square Garden because those fools thought they were getting a better player with Capo Caco.
Morons.
Jack Hughes had more points in the last 365 days than Capo Caco has in his NHL career, but we're not going to talk about that in any way. I
No.
asked you. Normally, it's like early December by the time a Devil player reaches 20 points. Jack Hughes has one on November 3rd, has 20 points on November 3rd through 9 games. Talk to me nicely about Jack Hughes.
Love it. I love seeing a superstar New Jersey Devil, even though we had one in net for all those years. Um, this is a
It's
legitimate
different.
superstar. It's different because that was a different era. That was a different type of Devils team. This is a more dynamic Devils team, and Jack Hughes is the catalyst to that, to the dynamism, if that's a word, if I'm saying that correctly, of this New Jersey Devils. And I love it. I want to say this kind of started when we signed Kovalchuk, and that was that feeling of, holy crap, we have a superstar on our team. And now we're back at that. We have a legitimate superstar. Like, we had Kovalchuk for a short time. It was great. We got Taylor Hall for a short time. That was great. Now we have a legitimate face of the league superstar that is with our team for hopefully his entire career, but at least for the next 8 years. I love it. And selfishly, I love it for my fantasy team.
Yeah, I absolutely love it too. What would it take for Jack Hughes to eclipse Patrick Elias as the greatest forward in Devils history? And what would it take for him to eclipse Marty for the best player in Devils history? I know we're like getting way ahead of ourselves, but I love talking about it. I love talking about it.
All right, so I'm gonna pull this apart. To be the best forward, or even just to be the best forward, it's just going to be a matter of time. To eclipse Marty as the greatest all-time player, I don't know if that's possible. He would have to single-handedly get us um, 3 Stanley Cups over the next 15 years to be in the same level, to be in the Mount Rushmore of Devils players. But I don't know if there's anyone that will ever eclipse Marty as being the guy of this franchise. But then again, recency bias will eventually come into play, and I'm sure if you ask any fan of the team that's been around for less than 15 years, he'll say that Marty who, Jack all the way. So it's going to be also a debate based on your age, based on your era of fandom for this team. And I hate that word fandom, and I can't believe I used it. But what do you think? What are your thoughts on that question? I'm going to throw it right back at you.
Yeah, so I think he's like well on pace to be the greatest forward the team has ever had. The Devils have never really been this dynamic offensive team. Even the second half of Marty's career, when they were a little more dynamic offensively with Zach Parise and Ilya Kovalchuk, and like the second half of Elias's career and Clarkson, and they eventually added Henrique, and
Mm-hmm.
there were some really good forwards. Ponikarovsky was awesome. Even on the back end, they got a little more dynamic with Rafalski and Marek Zhidlitsky put
Yep.
up points. Like guys like that, the offense was just a little more dynamic during that time. But pre that, this franchise is built on goaltending and defense, and so
Yep.
being like the offensive juggernaut that they are today, it's odd, for most of us.
Very.
The
It's
the
very
young
odd.
kids, kids that are 5, 6, 7 years old, first getting into hockey, growing up in that area, and they're watching the Devils, they're going to only think of them as like an Edmonton Oilers, type of team.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. That's all they're going to know. So I think recency bias will check in eventually. It's not going to take much for Jack Hughes to be the all-time forward, though. Patrick Elias, his numbers are great. He's a borderline Hall of Famer, but he's still not in. Nobody's firmly convinced he will get in. And I think Jack Hughes, if he keeps up 90, 100 points a season for the next, not even 90 shooting him low. If he's 100, 110 points for the next 8 years and he has 1,000 points by his 34th birthday, I absolutely think we're talking about the all-time greatest forward in Devils history. I think in order to eclipse Marty, it would have to be like he plays 1,500 games, he has 1,600 points or 1,500 points to match it, 600, 700 goals, and at least one Stanley Cup. And then we're talking, maybe he's in the conversation. So I agree with you. It's subjective depending on how old you are and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is we have a guy that we like talking about that much on that type of pedestal. We love Nico Hischier. We love Jesper Bratt, Timo Meier. We're not talking about their future as the all-time greatest Devil.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we're going to have to start, putting together our Mount Rushmores of Devils greats, and Jack and Marty will be on that. And you're right. We do love we do love Nico. We do love Timo. We do love Jesper, and those guys are going to be great in their own right. I fully expect if things pan out the way they are right now, out of the 4 of those players, I expect to see an 86 and a 13 in the rafters next to the likes of 30 and 4 and 3 and 27 and 26. But they're all different players. Jack, Jesper is dynamic, much like Jack is. Jack is more dynamic than Jesper. Nico is more of like a Swiss Army knife, and no pun intended there, because he'll do whatever you need him to do. But I think Nico will go down as one of the best captains that this franchise has ever had at some point. So it's these guys have roles to fill, and great teams have players that fill these roles. You think about the great Edmonton Oilers, the 80s. You had Gretzky, which would light everybody up. Then you had the likes of Mark Messier, who was a great scorer, but a bit of a grinder, kind of very like Timo-esque in a way. And then you had your Grant Fuhrer-Net. You had Esa Tikkanen, who was there to protect Gretzky. So you had all these players, and they all had a role, and they were all great in their own right, and they all fit together to make that team fantastic. And I really think that's what we're seeing.
Absolutely. And I look at a team like Toronto, and it's like they have all this talent. Why hasn't it gelled to turn into a Stanley Cup champion? Why haven't they even won a game in the second round in the last, in the Austin Matthews era, we'll call it? They're really not. Like, they're great. I think Nylander, he gets $11 million. Like, he's that good. Marner's already there. The problem is, like, Tavares, Matthews is a 1-2 punch. Their primes didn't really match up, and they're kind of they're both offensive first. I mean, Tavares and Matthews are by no means bad defensively. If Matthews won a Selke trophy down the line, I wouldn't be too surprised. But, I'd be a little surprised, but I wouldn't be too surprised. And Tavares, he's already in his mid-30s. Like, it's just not the same thing as what the Devils are building, and it's just so exciting. So, with all these guys in the mix, then Luke Hughes, just an absolute stud muffin. I mean, this guy's tied for the league lead in rookie scoring, and he's a defenseman. And not even just a defenseman. There are plenty of rookie defensemen. He's a teenage rookie defenseman. I think there's a huge difference from a guy who played 4 years in college or 3 years in college, or they're coming over from the KHL and they're still considered a rookie. Luke Hughes is as raw as you get as a rookie defenseman, and he's amongst the best in the league. One thing I want to get your thoughts on before we move into this game against the Blues. We talked about it already yesterday, but it's got to be brought up again. Quinn Hughes had 5 points. Jack Hughes had 2 points, and Luke Hughes had 1. The brothers had 8 points total yesterday. It is the National Hughes League.
It is. And to piggyback off of that, we were talking about this. The guys on the big show were talking about this amongst ourselves today. Jack, Quinn, and Luke have a combined 41 points. The San Jose Sharks have a total. Their team total is 24. I feel for Mac Black. However, those stats are incredible. Like,
You know your team
wow.
stinks when you come into the game late in the second period and you still gave
Mhm.
up 5 goals.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's just it's like that team is just a nightmare. And I want to say that's partially probably why it's going to take Timo a little bit of time to get adjusted to do very well with this team, because he had to be the guy out there, and we're seeing that without that guy, they're even worse. He doesn't have to be that guy, so it's kind of a bit of a transition where you for a player like him, where you go from the center to being one of many, and I mean center as in the center of attention to one of many. So it's kind of a segue into his play, and it's definitely getting better since they called him out. But as you can see, the team he came from, man, they have fallen, and they have fallen far. I mean, Jack and Luke combined have more points than the San Jose Sharks, which
Yeah.
is even worse. You get 2 players, at least that's 3, but yeah, that's it's definitely going to become the National Hughes League, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Last year, Timo scored 40 goals, but he had 66 points in 78 games played. He's actually on pace to have more points than that this year. Everyone's talking about him. He's got 2
Mm-hmm.
goals and 6 assists. Okay, and all like Timo Meyer, he doesn't have to score 40 goals. He has to help
No.
the Devils win. He was brought in here to be a power forward that
Mm-hmm.
he drives the net hard. He wins 50-50 battles along the boards and finds Jack Hughes or Nico Hischier or whatever centerman that he's a power forward winger, and he is playing exactly like that. He's going to have less goals, I think, on a team like this because of that fact. Or maybe he'll have the same amount of goals, but his assists will pick up because of the players that he's playing with. And seeing him light the lamp yesterday was awesome. I think there's going to be portions, right, where Timo gets 5 assists in a week, but only maybe he scored 1 goal. And then I think there's going to be a week or two where maybe he has 3, 4, 5 goals, but he doesn't have a single assist. It doesn't matter. Play your position, be the power forward. He's one of the best power forwards in the NHL in terms of a guy
Mm-hmm.
who can have 200 hits a season, 60 plus points, 30 plus goals. I mean, they're few and far between in today's day and age. He doesn't have one thing that he's super spectacular at, but he's like really good at everything. And that to me is kind of what the purpose of bringing him over was for.
Yeah, he's that all-around hockey player. He's that well-rounded, all put together hockey player, and he we would love to see him scoring goals because in a lot of senses that legitimizes his contract and what the Devils are paying him. But if he's helping to create goals and getting assists, and the Devils are winning, and he is playing an all-around great game, this is on the score sheet and off, he'll be worth all of that money. And not for nothing, he's got a great person to lean on. Talk about a bruising, a bit of a power forward in Claude Lemieux as his agent. Just like that.
Isn't
Talk
that
about a
something?
perfect person to go to for advice, for guidance on what to do maybe in a slump. I'm sure in his French accent, Claude will just tell him to go punch someone in the face because that's what Claude would have did. But he's going to pan out just fine, and I think being on this team, yeah, his goal scoring could potentially go down, but again, he doesn't have to be that guy to score all the goals. So his goal scoring may go up because the pressure won't be there. He's got to learn to play without all that pressure as well. So I think it's going to be good in the long run for him to be on this team, and it's going to be well worth that price tag when he's lifting that Stanley Cup and we're all celebrating in June one year. Maybe this year, maybe
Absolutely.
next year, maybe 2-3 years in a row. Who knows?
It's absolutely possible. Now I look at the St. Louis Blues, and I do think that their wing core has really taken a hit in the last handful of years. Obviously, they don't have Ryan O'Reilly anymore. He was a center, but that pushes some other people into the lineup or from wing back to center. They don't have Vladimir Tarasenko anymore. All these guys have moved on. What I do know is I'm looking at their defense, and it is not awesome. They have Nick Leddy, who was on the 2013 Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks 10 years ago. That's how long Nick Leddy's been in the league. He's on their top pair with Colton Parayko, which Colton Parayko has been a good defenseman this year, kind of struggling a little bit lately. But they have Torrey Krug and Justin Falk on the second pair. Marco Scandella, who some people might forget he's still even in the league. He was really good with the Minnesota Wild back in the day, but he plays with Robert Bortuzzo, and then goalie Jordan Binnington, who has been hit or miss basically since the year after he won the Stanley Cup. He was awesome. And then basically since that, Binnington has kind of taken a step back. I like their center group. It's not a bunch of superstars. It's not what the Devils have. But Robert Thomas, Braden Shen, Kevin Hayes, and Oscar Sundqvist is not a bad group of centers to kind of build around there. But when you start thinking about Pavel Buchnevich and Kasperi Kapanen on the top line with Robert Thomas, or Brandon Saad being on the second line with Braden Shen with Kyrou. Kairou's a good player. But, I mean, it's just not the same Blues team that it was. But they're fresh. The Devils aren't. What are you expecting to see from the Blues?
Well, my hope is that they can come out and put a really good game together. And maybe we'll finally get that. I think last night was probably the closest to a 60-minute game, which we talked about pregame. My hope is maybe they put that 60-minute game together tonight, because as you're going through the Blues lineup, they're not stellar by any means. The bass player in my band is a Blues fan, and he just said the other night when we were at band practice, like, they're a mess. So even the St. Louis fans are just, they can't figure it out. They have potential, but they have a lot of pieces, and they have a lot of pieces that they have to, add to do that, and they just seem so far removed from that Stanley Cup high. I do love Binnington, but I think everyone's take on Binnington is just get under his skin and he'll lose his mind, which is not good as a goalie. You don't want to lose your mind, but I kind of like that about him, that he will lose his mind like that. Like, sometimes I love chaos, and Binnington is always the potential for chaos, and I love him because of it.
Absolutely. Hopefully the Devils can get like 3 or 4 past them relatively early and just really piss them off. I'm not sure, like, who in the Devils lineup is going to get that much on. Like, it's not like we have Revo on the team or anything like that, but, like, maybe Nathan Bastian could go be annoying in front of the net.
Curtis Lazar.
Curtis Lazar. Yep. I think underrated Jesper Bratt has the ability to do that, because he could just stare at you and I would want to punch him in the face. Like, he just kind of has that face to me. Like he kind of he's like a diet Marchand. Like, he's not Marchand by any means. The offensive ceiling is probably getting pretty close to Marchand, honestly.
Yeah.
But, like, he's not quite as annoying. But, I mean,
he can be annoying.
Some of these guys, he can be annoying, and I'm sure Timo Meier will be all up in his grill throughout the game. So get under Jordan Binnington's skin and annoy the crap out of him. If you're watching on YouTube right now, I highly encourage you to put your predictions in the chat right now for tonight's game. I got it right yesterday, not to brag. Shorts guy, before we meet the peoples and get to mine, what's your prediction?
Oh, jeez. I'm going to be wrong again. Devils Blues. I want to say Kira Schmid should play tonight. Man. All right. I'll go 4-2 Devils.
4-2 Devils. Look at you. I'm looking at the I'm going to see if our girl Amanda told us who's starting in net. I actually didn't look.
According to my fantasy app, it's got Akira as playing, and he's my only goalie tonight that has a game tonight, so I put him in. A back-to-back like this with, I would assume it's going to be Akira, because he's got to get games. He's got to get his stuff together. St. Louis is a good team for him to kind of get the ball rolling. I agree. He's got to get it together, and tonight, hopefully the night.
Yes, it probably is going to be Akira. The Devils were off today in terms of AM skate, so there was no starters net or anything like that, like they had for the Blues, where it was confirmed that Binnington would be the guy. But yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be Akira. He needs a big game tonight. I firmly believe in his potential as a netminder.
So do I.
So for that reason, I am going to kind of be excited about the fact that he's in. Let's read a couple of these. Let's see. Where was the first one that I could find? Okay. Ralph says 6-3 Devils. Yeah, that's a nice prediction. Singsy says 5-2 Devils. He's got every goal scorer listed out. Palat, Jack, Timo, Luke, and Mercer all score. Play that parlay. Put 10 on that tonight, Singsy. See what happens to you. You'll be buying yourself a nice dinner tomorrow if you parlay all that. Steve Engel says, Dave, stop stealing my thunder. 5-2 Mercer scores tonight. Yeah, I mean, he took the exact same score, and they both think Mercer scores. Mercer is eventually going to score. Like,
yes,
these
he'll
people
score.
who are going crazy over Mercer not scoring, he's not playing terribly. I haven't watched a goal against him and be like, Dawson Mercer, you know what? That just hasn't happened yet so far. That's how I look at guys who are in slumps. Like Ovechkin, for example, before he scored his first goal, he pumped out 13 shots on goal the night before. Like,
Yeah.
the dude's going to score. Like, chill. It's hockey.
Yeah. And besides, how many of those people losing their minds at Dawson Mercer hasn't scored yet have actually scored goals in the NHL?
Yeah, none. Ramona Rice says 4-1 Devils. Tom replied and says, I like it, Ramona. So everyone kind of agrees with what they say.
Ramona's always really close, if not spot on.
Yeah. Selecta says 4-1. Please win it, Devils. Dubs says 5-3. Tom says due to blow someone out 6-1. I like that. I actually think the Devils, in a lot of ways, blew out the Wild yesterday, and Kirill Kaprizov, being a skilled player and getting a little puck luck himself, he kind of kept him in it. But, I mean, you're right. We need like a good, fearless win where you're halfway through the third period and you're just going through the motions. I'd like to see one of those kinds of wins for sure. Ralph says 6-3 Devils. Joseph says 4-2. Ramona, yeah, I already said that. The Insane Polak says 3-2. That's a very funny YouTube name. Ramona says Brat scores 2 tonight. So Brat scores 2 tonight again? Wow.
That would be
Brat's
great.
on fire.
I would take it.
That would be great. So I do think the Devils are going to win. I'm gonna take the exact same score as I said yesterday. I'm gonna say 5-3. I'm gonna ride the 5-3 wagon. The Blues, they'll stay in it a little bit, but the Devils will pull away at the end. And I do like Mercer to score tonight. I like Timo Meier to go back to back with a goal. But yeah, and we got the great Sam Wu chiming in, giving his prediction. He says 8-4 Devils. It's a very much a Sam Wu score. I actually like the high prediction for Sunday's game against the Chicago Blackhawks at the United Center. I just look forward to seeing a Jack Hughes dancing around the putrid defense that they throw out there every single night in Chicago. They have 2 rookies who get prominent minutes for them. They're good players, but like Seth Jones is becoming a traffic cone. Like, it's going to be so fun to watch Jack Hughes play against them. I'm very much looking forward to that.
You're gonna get to see a good game on Sunday.
I sure am. I'm very much looking forward to it. And everybody watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, no matter where you take in your Let's Go Devils podcast content, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Shorts guy, really quick before we cue the music, something's happening 1 week from today. Would you like to dive in?
Oh my gosh, yes. Next Friday is the big beer launch of Crew Brew at American Whiskey on Friday, November 10th against the Washington Capitals. I know myself and Sam Wu are going to be there in person. We do not have a ticket. So if you do not have a ticket, feel free to come down anyway and just drink a bunch of beer with us. I have friends that do have tickets, and they're not sure they're going to end up going into the game anyway. They may just stay there and drink beer. I do know we have a lot of friends of the podcast coming out and coming down. So everyone come out to American Whiskey next Friday, November 10th, for the Crew Brew beer launch. And come drink some beers and have a good time, responsibly, of course, with Sam Wu and myself. And some of the Hockey on Tap guys are going to be there as well. It's going to be a party, and I can't wait to do it.
Absolutely. And again, today was a great show. I hope everybody comes out and hangs out next Friday. Going to be very, very fun time for the Let's Go Devils podcast. Trying to think anything can get off the chest before the Devils play against the Blues. I think not. I think we got it all covered. I hope everybody tune in to Devils After Dark, where Scotty of SiriusXM will come on and talk about the game that was. For Shorts Guy, I'm Vinnie Parise. Hopefully the Devils get yet another win and become 7-2-1. Wow, what a record that would be. As always, let's go Devils.